When did you stick your head out to say, okay, hey, I want
Public
to do
service.
public service, right?
So, I mean, I would say that I maybe started getting active, I mean, way before I finished law school. Like, I would say back in 2011, 2012, when I was in college, I was doing a lot of work. I was working with my Javier, Hodan Mohamed, shout out. Yeah. So Hodan, she used to own a nonprofit. I mean, she moved to Egypt a couple of years back.
Oh, okay.
But we used to do a lot of work with resettlements, refugees. We used to do a lot of work around, applications for public benefits, Social Security. Those are all things I used to do after school. So I would just come and help Hodan with different applications and for different refugee populations. So that's when I started becoming more and more active. 2011, 2012, and 2013, 14, I was in college at that point too. And then I started doing a lot more of the immigration work, maybe more so in 2015, 16. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a lawyer then, but I was doing a lot of assistance, advice, recommendations on different things that were happening in the community. So that's when I started engaging more, but also political side too. That's when I started becoming more and more political, I would say.
Gotcha. We're trying to have the audience understand your journey to, you were getting involved
what
in
got
politics.
me into it.
Yeah, what were you doing?
Yeah, So I would say I don't really have a unique story. People have always unique, interesting stories. Like I met this guy and he was a big political dude, and that's what got me political, or some life-altering thing happened. That's what got me into it. No, I would just say that the fact that I was doing this work back in 2011. That's when I started with Hodan, with the nonprofits that I was working with Hodan. Others started becoming more political maybe in 2014, 15, 16. I started becoming more active maybe with the Democratic Party at OSU when I was an undergrad. I was just doing volunteer work. And then when I graduated, when I started law school, I started becoming more and more active within the Democratic Party. Campaigning for Democrats that were running in Central Ohio, City Council, gubernatorial races, other things that I was involved in. So, but I was doing the political angle, but I was doing also the community work, assisting nonprofits, immigrants. Obviously, I was a translator. People don't know that. I was a translator for years before I became a lawyer. I started right when I graduated high school. In 2011 is when I started translating. I was a translator for different organizations. So that's what got me with the legal system too, because I used to be a translator for the courts too. Before I was a lawyer. So I still get confused when someone that knew me back then would talk to me and be like, "How are you the interpreter?" And I'm like, "I'm an attorney now." But they knew me back then when I was a translator. So that's what got me naturally into it.
Okay. So let's talk about your first campaign.
Yeah.
And District 3 now, before it used to be, I think, District 25.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did it broken down? So give us
the district numbers.
Yeah.
Well, the numbers are just based on the population of the county. So the most populated county, that's where they start the numbers. So in 2010. So in 2020, we had the census every 10 years, right? So 2010, we had the census. For that census, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, was the biggest, most populated county. So, of course, Cleveland started the numbers. So there was one. The first rep would be 1, 2, 3. Would just go up the numbers, right? We were probably second most populated. So in 2020, things changed because Franklin County has been growing nonstop, especially the suburbs. So Franklin County is the most populated. So starting 2020, we started getting the numbers. So my good friend, for example, John Tavius Gerald is 1. He's House District 1. Latina Humphrey, another good friend of mine, rep, is 2. I am 3. Right? So the numbers don't really change much. They switch based on the most populated county. They don't affect the district map. That's done by the governor. There's a board of I think 9 people or 12 made up of the statewide races, statewide candidates and elected. So governor, secretary of state, attorney general, and treasurer, and we also have members from the House and Senate. They decide the map. That's when we talk about gerrymandering and how maps are drawn, right? Because Ohio is heavily red statewide, they tend to draw the maps, and that's how we're outnumbered 2-1. We only have 32 members that are Democrat, right, in the House. They have 67 members. That's a big distinction, right? We should have, based on our voting population as Democrats, we should probably easily have closer to 45. Right.
What do you think that
43
is?
to 45. So it's called gerrymandering. It's a political thing. I mean, both parties do it realistically. It happens.
It's power play?
Power play. Yeah. But we're trying to change it right now. There's a big ballot initiative we're doing right now with the Democratic Party to try to move away from this partisan committee that's made up of the governor, attorney general, right, to make it into a nonpartisan group. Right. Folks that are non-political, that are not, trying to do the whole gerrymandering thing, pick demographics, but are based on the overall population.
If we change Iran, so now the government, everybody's republic, right? Everybody's red. So if it was blue, then it
would be the other way around. Likely.
So they pretty much have the same authority over what these guys are doing. They could also have done that as
they
well.
could have done it too. It's true.
Okay. So it makes sense to have like an outsider.
Non-partisan,
non-partisan, exactly, non-political. Okay.
Yeah.
How close are we?
We're working on the ballot initiative, and we're getting a lot of pushback from the Republican Party and the Secretary of State because they certify the ballot initiative. Last year, for example, we passed. There was a big ballot initiative that we passed. Issue 2 is one that obviously I was a big supporter of.
So that's good. The first election. How was it like running that campaign? I know you had a lot of volunteer, right? But at the same time, it's like you were the driver's seat in some way, right? What's that experience like?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. So the first thing in deciding anything is to decide to run, to do something, right? Mm-hmm. So I know that I kicked off my campaign in I think it was October of 2017, right? So I knew that I was running against an incumbent, Bernadine Kennedy-Kent. She was the incumbent then. And I knew that obviously it was going to be problematic, but I also knew her story. I knew that she was not someone who was providing constituent services. At that point, she was having a lot of issues with the Democratic Party. She, essentially went to war with OLBC, Ohio Legislative Black Caucus. Okay. She was having a lot of issues with her colleagues. So she was not a good rep, and there were a lot of issues with her. So she was definitely an easier target. And I knew that I felt like I could do a lot better than her. That's why I kicked it off. Okay. So, when you make that decision and throw your hat in, you know that you're taking a lot of risk. And you know that you don't have name recognition. Nobody knows you at that point. So anytime you're running your first campaign, you're always at a disadvantage because you don't have name recognition. People don't know you very often, right? But you're dealing with someone who's an incumbent. They already have name recognition. They already have following. They've done some things. So I knew that was going to be a tough battle, but we ran a really good race, and we had a lot of volunteers, and we lost by I think 500 and some change votes. I mean, it was a close race, and it was. I mean, I got a bunch of phone calls from the Democratic Party folks, and they were excited for my race. Mm-hmm. A lot of them were supporting me, and they did not like Bernadine Kennedy-Kent. But at that point it was too late to hold off the endorsement. So she was the incumbent. She, of course, was endorsed, but a lot of folks were supporting me. So that put me in a position where I was excited. Even after I had lost the campaign, I knew that I ran a good race, made some relationships, built relationships. I knew that I was in a position where, I wanted to work closely with the party and build those relationships going forward. Okay. That's what I did. Yeah.
Okay. What did you learn from it? Because obviously you didn't make it, right?
What I learned was that, obviously what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Absolutely.
You gotta just get up and keep going. That's one. The other thing is it does, it makes your skin very tough because you're dealing with constituents, you're door knocking. Outside of the whole political thing, most of us don't put ourselves in a position where we're out there soliciting folks for a vote or something, right? So generally speaking, we're generally polite. We try to. Nobody's comfortable walking to somebody's door to door knock and be like, hey, I'm selling this, or hey, you should vote for me, right? Right. So that's something that you got to get past. That was something that I dealt with at the beginning that was awkward. I wasn't comfortable with it. Uh-huh. But I've done it before. I've campaigned and door knocked for candidates before. So, I was maybe awkward for a couple of days. After that, I was very comfortable. So I think getting comfortable with constituents, understanding that some folks are going to be weird or they're going to be rude or, whatever. Yeah. Understanding that you got to be able to just move on from that and, understand. So it toughens your skin. It also, you get to learn about yourself and what your comfort level is. Because there are some folks who announce or want to run for something and later on find out that they're not interested. That's not their true calling in life. Right. So it takes you doing it to understand it's not your calling. Yes.
I mean, you got to try a few things before you figure out what you really want to do, right? And early on you said that you figured, you thought you could do a better job than the previous person that was on there, right? What are the things that okay, maybe if I get in office or maybe if I get elected in that, this is the first thing that I can go ahead and tackle on.
Yeah.
Like, what were your inputs in that?
The biggest thing was safety.
Okay.
Safety, I would say. Okay. Youth violence was huge back then. Obviously, drug abuse was also something that has been happening for so long, especially among minority population, specifically within the New American community, within the Somali community was big.
Somali community,
we're dealing
still
with...
it is.
Exactly. We're dealing with kids that are overdosing, regularly. And so definitely combating that, but also understanding that we should bring dollars to our community. So supporting our nonprofits, understanding that we should be out there campaigning hard to make sure that we are bringing dollars and support, not only from state, but also from city council, county commissioner's office. So I was excited about those things. I did that because I did that work with the nonprofit world, with our helpers. I was doing that work. We were doing mentorships. We were doing programming around youth violence. We were going to schools to advocate for kids who were dealing with, substance abuse, or kids who, had a language barrier, but they had some behavioral issues. So I was doing a lot of, different high schools and middle schools. So these are all things I was doing, but on the nonprofit side. So I wanted to turn that into legislation once I got in. So.
Did you get a chance to do that? Or?
So after I won, so 2018, of course, I lost that race, but I.
Yeah, after you get in, were you able to do that? Right?
Yes, okay. Yes. So I have several legislation right now that deal with, obviously making sure that we are bringing dollars to our community.
Okay.
We do a lot of constituent services. That's one, especially with housing. That's one aspect of it that we deal with.
If somebody doesn't understand what the constituency service mean, break that down.
Break that down. Okay, yeah. All that means basically is as members of the House, as representatives, right? Yeah. We essentially work with our constituents. Our constituent can reach out and say, for example, they're having a problem with the BMV.
Okay.
They're trying to get their license, it's blocked, or whatever it might be. They're having an issue with it, right? Okay. We can try to assist with that. Things that relate to, of course, safety issues, things that relate to understanding the different state agencies, if you're applying for benefits or anything along those lines, anything that you deal with a state agency, we can try to assist and write a letter on your behalf to try to advocate. That's one thing that we do. But also understanding that we also try to educate the community on the services that we do have, the different state agencies. Okay. So all that together is constituent services. That's a big part of our job.
Okay. Gun violence or youth violence. Our kids are having a hard time. Yeah. The Somali community is having a really hard time, and mental health is a big one.
Yeah,
it's a big part of it. Is that something that you can assist? Is that something that you're involved? Is that something that you can, kind of sort of direct? On how to help?
Right. Yeah, I know. So generally, though, being members of the House, right, we generally have a budget. We try to fund cities and localities, right? So we have an overall impact policy-wise. But really, it's city council, it's your local folks, city council, mayor's office, who directly implement programs. So we don't really directly implement programs, right? We more so provide funding overall. Obviously, we do support nonprofits, right? Yeah. But it's more so city council, county commissioners who actually have the capacity to directly spearhead programs.
Gotcha.
So one thing that we try to always support is Narcan. Narcan is obviously an important, useful drug that you can use for someone who's overdosing, right? Okay. So we try to make sure that we're advocating and folks understand that Narcan should be at every single household. It should be at every masajid, right? It should be everywhere. But that's one thing that I feel like we should do more of. Yeah. We need to understand that. If someone is having, if they're overdosing, that's the only way you can save that person, right? If you call 911, that's great, but by the time they get there, most likely they're dead, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we try to advocate for with the county sheriff's office, and there should be more and more of that out there.
Yeah. For community members. And do you need a training to do that stuff? Like, okay. What is it? Is it a needle?
It's essentially a needle. Yeah, you press it. It's simple. It's easy. Okay. It's accessible, and it's basically meant to be used in an emergency situation when somebody's overdosing, right? And it's the county sheriff's office provides it free of charge. Yeah. They do it at different events. They try to provide it, but we're trying to get it into every single household, community centers, masajids. But you understand a community, and it's sometimes it's a little bit harder. Language barriers, some things make it a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So that's something that we have to challenge and try to deal with. Inshallah.
Yeah. That should have been acceptable if you really look the rates of kids dying.
Yeah.
That should not be something that's too difficult to kind of sort of, that should not be part of it. And that's a big part. But the other thing that can be done is just being proactive, kind of sort of, getting ahead of the curve and
education.
Yeah, education. Yeah,
prevention. Right.
Yeah.
So we, for example, passed several bills that deal with fentanyl and drug abuse, but making sure that we're being preventative, right, proactive, right. So more so, providing education at an earlier age, middle schools, high schools, making sure that kids are understanding what fentanyl means. They're understanding the impact and the risks that they're taking when they do drugs, right? So educational pieces that are done earlier on, but also understanding that as folks get into drugs, that we have rehabilitation programs that can get them cleaned up. So we have several bills that passed the House and the Senate, but also we are also funding nonprofits that are doing work on the ground to educate these communities.
Okay. So. Can you speak on like what?
So, for example, we're doing a program right now on the west side of Columbus, specifically within the Bantu community.
Okay.
So, because we understand that there's been a lot of overdose and obviously drug substance abuse on the west side, and within the Bantu community, obviously is very insular. They're often not very connected to the overall Somali community, and we're doing programming to make sure that we're opening up the community to them. That they understand there's services out there. I want to give a shout out to Fatima Bulle. She's doing some amazing programming out there. My brother Abdekhair Sofe was just inviting me to an event the other day, and he's doing some great work with the development of neighborhoods. And we have community leaders that are doing some good work. That are trying to integrate that community into our broader community, and so that they should understand the resources that are available. So that's one aspect of it that we support. Also funding for nonprofits too.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great work in terms of anything that can really prevent, anything that can really help the
saving
youth,
a single life is worth it. Absolutely,
a million times. It's just in sales they say 1 yes advice, million no's. It's excellent. Let's talk about a little bit about what is on your plate right now in terms of your day-to-day work. Not the lawyer side of it, but in office. Like what's on your table that kind of sort of keeps you at night?
That I'm working on. So I have a couple bills that I'm working on right now. I just gave testimony on a couple of the bills. So one, I have a bill. So by the way, June 20th was just a couple of days ago now. June 20th is World Refugee Day. So I have a bill that would designate June 20th as World Refugee Day in Ohio. So it's an advocacy day, and that would basically create excitement, interest, understanding our state should be a welcoming state. Right, that's one bill. But I have other bills. I have a bill regarding CDL truck licenses, because I understand our community, specifically our community, the immigrant population.
What is it about?
So it essentially creates an opportunity for folks to be able to get 2 points back on their license. So, for example, in Ohio, you have 12 points total. Right? So every time you lose 2 points, that's a problem. Especially if you're a truck driver. Right.
How long it takes to, like, let's just say I lose 2 points, and now I have 10 points. How long it will take before I get back?
2 years. 2 years to accrue the points. Back, 2 years. So what we're trying to make sure is that we change that down to 1 year. First of all, but also allow them to do a remedial class. There is a remedial class option. You could do a class, you get the points back. So that class is going to be done every single year. Once that bill passes, it'll be an annual class. So every single year you're able to do that class and get 2 points back. So that gives you an opportunity that every year you get a traffic citation, you're able to essentially do the class and you don't lose any points.
Gotcha.
Because that's their livelihood, right?
That's their livelihood, exactly.
So that's one of the bills. I have another bill right now that I just did sponsor testimony on. That's the first hearing when the rep actually testifies on the bill. And then you have proponent testimony, which is the supporters of the bill. You have opponent, right? Opposition. And then you generally vote it out. Then at that point, the committee would vote it out, right? So I just had sponsor testimony on a bill. That bill deals with kosher halal food, right? So of course you understand that for the Jewish community, but also within the Muslim community too, that we have dietary restrictions, right? So understanding that universities, middle schools, high schools should be able to provide foods that are kosher or halal. It's kind of the same concept, right? So because there's a big struggle for universities specifically, but also middle and high schools. If a kid does not want to eat a meal that's against his faith, they should not have to pick between going hungry versus violating their religious belief. So this is a common sense bill. A lot of different states are passing it to say that we're not not really saying that it should be everywhere. What we're saying is there should be an option, a third option, right? There's going to be standard food. There should be a third option that students should be able to have access to.
Don't they have that option now?
Well, they don't really. They're not they don't have it. Some university policies create that.
Okay.
They create an incentive for it, but there's not a requirement for them to provide that.
Gotcha.
But, obviously universities make an effort. There's for example, Brown University is one. There's other universities that on their own are creating policy to make that available, but it's not required. But my bill makes it a requirement that they provide a grant opportunity, to give to middle schools, high schools, universities, and for them to get that grant, they have to create a program that's kosher halal, and they have to provide that option to those Muslim and Jewish students.
Gotcha.
That's an opportunity. It's easy, accessible, right? So that's another bill that I'm excited about, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback from the sponsor testimony.
Okay.
I also have another bill that creates the minority law student enrichment program. So there's a big shortage of attorneys. So the governor appointed me to an indigent defense task force.
Okay.
It's basically made up of members, but also lawyers, judges, prosecutors, and basically what they're doing, they're studying the public defender system in Ohio to see is it accessible? Do we need to make it better? So that's basically free public lawyers for folks that are in jail, that are accused of a crime. So there's a big shortage of lawyers altogether. We have a shortage of public defenders, but we also have a shortage of overall lawyers. So one takeaway from that task force is all the reps and all the different judges and prosecutors, they all had the same recommendation. It's that we need to make sure that what can we do to create more attorneys, to provide an incentive for students at an earlier age to go to law school, because law school is expensive. It is long for a lot of families. So I can imagine that folks they don't want to go there because of obviously the debt ratio
I never
is
heard
problematic.
that there was a shortage for lawyers, but go ahead. That's interesting.
There's a shortage of lawyers.
I know there's a shortage for nursing.
Different sectors maybe, different sectors not maybe, but there's a shortage of lawyers altogether. So for example, especially in some of the rural counties, because we're in Frank County, so obviously one of the things that we talked about during the task force was that all the attorneys have an incentive to go to the bigger counties because there's more population. It makes sense. But you have literally counties that have 5 lawyers. There's a county that I remember specifically, they had only 5 lawyers for a population of I think 1,500. That was the whole county, right?
That should be enough.
I don't know.
One
right?
for every 500 there should be one, right?
That's not the best ratio.
Right.
But out of those, let's say all 5 of them decide to do employment law.
Yeah. They got to be diverse, right?
So my program, what it does essentially, it creates a scholarship program. It invests $350,000. It's a pilot project to basically say that they're going to create a cohort, a class basically of 10 to 20 students, minority students specifically. By the way, I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. Yeah. I'm not saying there's a shortage of overall lawyers. I'm saying of minority lawyers.
Okay, now I got you. Yeah.
Minority lawyers.
Minority lawyers. Okay.
Right? The very fact that I'm the only Somali American lawyer in Ohio is evident that it's obviously a big shortage, right? So my program, my bill would create a class of 10 to 20 students, minority students, that'll get a scholarship, $4,000 every year.
You're the only Somali lawyer here in Ohio?
It's practicing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple of kids that graduated law school right now.
Okay.
Shout out to Gure, and a couple others. Abdul Wahid, give him a shout out. I think his daughter graduated law school too. She's going through the bar exam.
That's what's
right
up.
Now, there's a couple others that may have graduated but they moved out of state.
But
no one practicing right now.
How hard is the bar?
I can't. Yeah. I can't tell you. If I did, I would have to kill you. So, but it's pretty bad.
So it's hard.
It's a hard test.
How many times you gotta take?
No, I did it once.
Okay,
but,
and you passed.
I passed.
Okay,
yeah. But it was a 3-day class.
Okay.
Where the first day was I think 6 hours, 250 questions. I think.
Okay.
Like 15 short answer responses. I think 8 long. First day. Second day. It was 15 long essays. So first day was 6 hours, second day 6 hours, third day 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
So 12 plus 3, 15?
Yeah.
15-hour exam.
15-hour exam.
And they even tell you in advance.
Yeah.
If you drove, take an Uber, right? Don't try to drive back because your brain would be fried at that point.
Yeah.
It's not a realistic test. And I think we got away from that now. Now we have the UBE, which is uniform. So it's a little more reasonable, but it's a difficult test. And so there's no one practicing right now. So my bill creates a scholarship program for these kids. They teach them about law school, gets involved early on in their education. So high school age kids, but also college kids that are currently in a bachelor program to try to get them incentivized to go to law school. So it's a great program that I'm excited about.
Okay.
I have a bill regarding making sure that minimum wage increase, for example. I have a bill with my good friend.
All politicians do this. Like, I'm not targeting you, but what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is, those are like the basic, going after,
priority bill. Yeah, one of those.
Heavily
bills. There's some bills that are like, we call it priority bills.
Okay.
How I like. So how I priority bill, how I heavily democratic bill.
Okay.
I relate, of course. Like every Hizbi will hardcore bills that are, whether it's immigration, of course, like abortion, minimum wage, things that are hyper political.
Yeah.
Or let's go talk about that.
Meaning
how there's no crossover.
Forget about it.
There's other things in between, or majority that are adi, that are day-to-day bills. Plus are more realistic. You're able to get sponsorship support, but these priority bills, bills that every year introduce knowing that pass we still have to keep pushing every GA every 2 years. وانشدوس قلنا بيلشان
so madaxa darbi ku dhifatid long enough waxa way waa furma camal
qadar ilaahay madaxa ku raacaya inta la furmanayo marka priority bills which na badan oo obviously political marka laakiin aan riixno waa because advocacy aan dhalinaysa because bulshadii baa kasbanaysa because populations ka iyo demographics ka isbedeli kara marka ina advocate gareyso waa bills xitaa oo waa ogtahay politically inay xisbiga kala taageereen marka laakiin waa push gareynaa anagoo kasbanayna bulshada advocate gareynayna sponsor testimony press conferences aan ku riixayna bulshada inay fakarkooda isbedelaan.
There's some additional bills that you added on, right? So let's talk about that a little bit.
So I have a couple bills. I have a license for all bill. So because licenses are given by the state, right? So our state unfortunately does not give licenses for folks that are undocumented, right? Someone who's going through an immigration process, or someone who came here illegally and has not filed for asylum, or someone who came here legally but overstayed their visa, whatever it might be, right? They don't give you an option to get a license in Ohio unless you get your green card or your work authorization. That's the problem, right? 29 other states provide license for all. 29 other states and DC. So my bill, all it does is it creates a license for all, meaning anyone who can establish that basically they live here, they establish that they have a pending immigration case, basically. So if you file for asylum or, spousal visa, whatever it might be, right? As long as you can show that you have a pending visa, what's called the 797 notice of action, you get from immigration office. You can show that. That's enough for you to get a license. Because what's happening is folks are driving. There's over 500,000 people and above that live in the state of Ohio who are undocumented, who don't have a driver's license for whatever reason, right? So making sure that they have a license is obviously a safety issue, right?
But if you don't have that 797, you cannot get a license.
So you must have a pending case. Right?
That's what I'm trying. So if you don't have it, then you shouldn't get.
You should be able. Then what's your status?
What is your status? Exactly. No, now I get you. I thought it was just for just to get a driver license. I mean, no. I mean, But continue.
So my other bill, that's one bill of it. That's obviously going to impact a huge portion of the immigrant population.
Is it inactive now or not yet?
So I introduced the bill. We're waiting for it to go through the process. But it is a political bill. You can imagine that obviously the other party are not going to be supportive of it.
What is the typical?
We're doing everything we can to advocate for it.
What is the typical life for it to go through the process? Any bill?
The entire bill process. Yeah, sure. So you first draft a bill as a rep. So we have LLC, which is in-house sort of folks that work for us. So what they do is they'll help us draft the bill. We draft it, we introduce it, and then we have sponsor testimony. That's the first testimony, right? That's the actual members that are giving testimony on the bill. And then you have proponent, that's supporters. You can get everyone who can advocate for the bill to come. The committee will be asking them questions. You have opponent after that, and then generally sometimes you have you'll have opponent/opponent. They'll give him another opportunity for them to show up, and typically it's voted out at a committee. So it usually, depending on the bill, depends on the leadership. Some bills can go through it really fast. Some bills it could take 2 years for it to pass. Some will not get a hearing because it's obviously a political body. So of course. So that's one of my bills, but I want to cover my other bill, which is very, very, very important. The other bill is what it does essentially is it creates a free lunches for all the kids in high school.
Okay.
Any high school, middle school, basically any child who does not have money, because essentially right now our current process is if your family has income, then what happens is the family has to chip in something, right? The state covers a portion of it, but the family has to also chip in. So what's happening is sometimes for whatever reason the parents are not paying their fees. So kids are going hungry literally, or kids are being denigrated. They're looked down upon. They're being told they have to go to the principal. You have to make a payment, right? They're being asked to go to a special room. They're being given a special brown bag, which shows that they're delinquent. Their parents are late on their fee. So it's denigrating a young child who didn't do anything wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's something that's really horrible, obviously. So what my bill, me and Rep. Brewer, my colleague in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, what the bill does essentially is it makes sure that every single child, regardless of their family's income, regardless of whether they're delinquent or not, should be able to have a free lunch if they ask for it. No child should be denigrated or treated any differently because of their family's inability to pay their portion of it.
Okay.
So that's a bill that we're excited about, but also pushing for free school lunches altogether.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our state doesn't provide that. We have the money for it, but the majority caucus will not do that, unfortunately. Okay. So that makes it additionally more difficult.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, those are two good bills, and I hope they go through the process for them to be active and be approved and all that. That's excellent. One final thing. I mean, there's the upcoming elections, the presidential elections. Let's talk about that.
That's good.
Ohio is a swing state, so Obama win two times.
The thing is, like, it's more purple now, but I mean,
more
red now. I'd say more red now.
Yeah, definitely more red now.
Definitely more purple.
Yeah. Knowing what I know now, I would not vote for Obama though.
I mean, I think Obama was a successful president. I mean, he did a lot of great things.
Yeah, but he sure did.
Not everyone. The thing is, not everyone's going to like his policies, but I think Obama was one of the most consequential presidents. He did Obamacare. Some of the major things that he worked on were huge, historic. I mean, life changing. But obviously, not everyone's going to like everything he does. It's understandable. But yeah, 2024.
Do you think Trump's coming back?
Yeah, I mean, no. I would say no, he's not going to come back. Okay. Fingers crossed, but we'll see what happens. But obviously, I'm a delegate.
Right. I know you're doing.
Yeah, I'm a delegate.
Okay.
I'll be going to the convention.
Okay.
So I'm a delegate.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
So basically, delegates are elected from the states.
Okay.
So every state will elect delegates. They go to the convention.
Yeah.
And they vote for the president. They give the official party endorsement to the president. Right?
Okay.
So alhamdulillah, I'm a delegate.
How many delegates?
It's a lot. Ooh.
Okay.
I think over 100.
Okay.
I think I would have to check the exact number, but I know that within our it's done congressional district, right?
Okay.
So within our third congressional district, the Congressman Joyce Beatty's office, we have we had a total of 5 male delegates, 4 female delegates, and 1 female alternate.
Okay.
So we had a total of 10 that are delegates that are going to be representing congressional districts.
Okay.
And each congressional district is going to have that same number, a rough number.
Okay.
It could be different depending on the population.
Okay.
So we go to. I'm excited for August. We're going to be going to Chicago for the convention.
Yeah.
And obviously officially certify the president and Kamala Harris to be vice president. So I mean, excited for it. They're running a good campaign. There's a lot that's going on, of course, that's impacting it. So it'll be an interesting campaign. But obviously, we're heavily pushing hard to make sure that each elected official is reaching out to his constituents, educating the community on what the Biden-Harris team will do for the next 4 years. Talk about what they've done already. The passing the CHIPS Act, biggest relief for the American population, the American Rescue Plan. I mean, some of the major historic things that he did, no other president did, right? But it's obviously we were still in COVID right when he won. So we were coming out of COVID, and obviously there was a big unemployment rate and a lot of things that happened that impacted him. But I think the president did a lot of great things that were very positive.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to the debate, though. Debate should be interesting.
Yeah, debate should be interesting. It should be too interesting.
Yeah.
Exciting to see.
Especially with Trump's conviction, all the things that are going on with Trump, and all his baggage.
I mean,
I think it's we're doing everything we can to educate the public on just the risk of electing an actual felon, an actual convicted felon, right? That's interesting.
Is it like he's convicted felon now?
He's an actual convicted felon. He was convicted, a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And he's going to be sentenced on July 11th.
Of this year.
We're looking at a former president who's an actual criminal.
Yeah.
That's just one of the cases.
Yeah.
We've got 4 other cases that are coming up over the next months. So I mean, it's a low bar. I think Biden will get reelected, but there's obviously also issues that are prevalent overall. Inflation rate. The president has done a lot of work to get that down to a reasonable number. Inflation is still high. Obviously, the southern border is another issue that's going to be coming up. That has President Biden has been attacked on nonstop, left and right, and the president is doing everything he can to be compassionate, but at the same time understand that we do have a country, we do have to have borders, of course, and the president has done everything he can to enforce that. But at the same time, we're also an immigrant nation. We can't leave our founding principles, which is that we're a nation of immigrants, and we should be welcoming and understanding to our immigrant population, because that's what made America so great. So finding that balance is not easy. So that's going to be an issue that's going to come up, obviously, in the debate too.
Yeah. It's immigration.
The wars that are going on. So a lot of interesting topics that are happening.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for Biden. Biden-Harris team. I think they're going to get reelected, but it'll be likely a close race.
This conversation could go in so many places, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. There's war going on. There's all kinds of things going on.
Yeah.
So I think overall, in life they say, you look for what you get. So we're gonna focus on the positive side, and hopefully, things will go in the right direction.
And we have to be an informed citizenry. It's one of the things in the actual Constitution is that we have to make sure that our population is informed and they know what's
Do you
going
think as Somalis we're really informed on what's going on with politics?
Like Somalia, yes.
Yeah.
Somalia ku dhahaya.
Somalia ku socda.
Maya.
maxaa dhahayd
waxa u baahan cilmi badan baan naga maqan fahankii cilmiga horta yani siyaasadda Mareykan wuu nagu yaryahay I think waxa waaye anagana they obviously so siyaasadda Soomaalida hadaa fiiriyo like especially Mareykan overall I would say aad anagu cilmigeeni uma bana siyaasadda hadaa specific raro ahay ka hadlo kale anagu think waxa way waa fahanay hada more voting kan aad baa codeynaa hadeer which is wax fiican waaye waa fahansanahay voting process-ka but I think understanding ka deep uma lihin dadka dilo wadi Soomaalida dimuqraadi Republican maxay kala duwan yihiin majority ma kala fahmi karaan I think way ogyihiin Republican xooga cunsuri yahay dimuqraadiga dadka danyarta ay u fiican yihiin laakiin yani cilmi kale ay
deep hadda dad badan oo waxa jira Soomaali oo Republican so tusaale ahaan Farxan Jeete markuu city council u rangaray aniga asii conversation qaadanay so podcast u imaad so I would like to know so marka wuxuu u orday as a Republic but history waxay tiri taariikhda waxay tusaysaa inaysan dad Republic badan aysan gelin meesha but waxaan ka wada waxa waaye dhankaas kama gelayna but waxaan ka gelaynaa dhanka oo maxay ahaydeen that so dad badan oo Soomaali waxa jiro dhanka Republic fiirinay so marka say kula tahay
I mean like it's one of the things that xogaa la yaabo dadka majority ay la yaabaan but waxa waaye I think waxa waaye dadkeena Soomaalida saa'id waaye cilmiga iska yar fahamkii siyaasadda guud I think we'll kooban yahay I think Minnesota has started years back this is back in maybe 2011 2012 2013 markay politically Soomaalida bilaabayeen there was a guy named I think his name was Askar. That's the first guy ever maqlay running as a Republican. Shocker. Yeah. He ran and I think he ran against Ilhan Omar. I think when she was running for I think she was running for a state rep first race Katie. But even beyond that I think he ran before her race award. So marka orta I think waxa ay dadkeena majority Soomaalida orta hadii aan orta labada xisbi falanqeeyo orta let me just do an educational piece maybe. Labada xisbi waxay kala duwan yihiin maybe. That's a bigger question Sama Abdullah as we din karno. Orta waxay ku kala duwan yihiin taariikhiyan la ogaado orta labada xisbi waxay taagnaayeen xisbiga dimuqraadiga asaaskiisii basic wuxuu ahaa dadka laga awood weynaa xisbiga Republican-kana generally asaaskiisii wuxuu ahaa property owners generally niman cadaana white men asaaskoodii basekoodii kaasboorta ahaa dad oo cadaan u badnaa dad oo cunsuri ku ahaa madowga iyo minoritiska property owners hantilaha I mean that's the foundation of أساس مدين كدمنا naturally it stayed the same way till this day واجي لحد there was same kind of situation كنا على بدأ حزبنا وحكوا سليسين هاي more lower taxes of course Republican Party lower taxes more business friendly هذه لها وأوقري كما قالوا كاس قناص الفيديو more business friendly أيوة less regulations بيعملين قضب كاس ما قضب debatable some situations وقت أنا وصح أحسن على فيديو regulations كسم the regulations أنا كسر شيء ناتشرا you know some things it definitely makes sense هدي feel like overall basic foundation كوحواية عنصرين ماذا يكون عنصريين يعني تتكدنير تاع تتكمدوجا تتك أو سوقيتاكا كاسنا ده واحد قرصون ما it's public platform سومالي ده نبغى كيبغوا فانسيين Democratic Party جا أساس كودي وحكم بلودي that laborers كا that شغاليال warehouse كشقيني they you know blue collar workers بكون بلودي أو كد دجالمي wages كودي حقوق كودي إن لا دجالمي employer كودي بكون دجالمي حقوق كودي أساس كودي كاسبوها تتكدنير تابو سكوب بدرسي جودنا حتى generally speaking ده كminority مكلا في American Hispanics كمدوجا ده كسوقيتان كminorities كا I mean 99% definitely Democrats بيهين تدير ويشران أو you know advocate كريه on specific issues وفي رير بكام بعنا هاي I think علمي غير مركا foundation قفك وين هدول لهين أساس كحزب جا صدق بقول صنع إيو ماشي قصة برودي هدول قفك أولى هين ودريم كرا إنه قفك one issue دورته إنه issue جنبه حلال كريسة لكن علمي جري واقعس وانتي يفهم جري مركا أنا one of the things أنا لبرو أنه obviously حواي both undergrad political science أقاطي law school كا foundations كلا بدأ حزب وتاريخين هي تاريخه سهل جمين تانا مركو حقفون كفيريو it's pretty obvious لبدأ حزب وحين كنا دويهين حزبنا إنه رنتين كسوه كذا not only أننا minorities overall كسوه كذا لبدأ قال لما يو دي the programs the opportunities كإن level قليل playing field كإن level قليل فرصة إن السيدات كminority كا سيدا عنصرين مدي هورا ساميسي أو لو ترترو مركب program يدا أي especially diversity and inclusion for example program يدا affirmative action program يوحوي تذكر مريا واحد عنصري إنه هاي بمعنى واحد وناكسن because واحد يتكلم مدو كا minorities كا or historically la discriminate gray لحمي بيتاجريان marka they're not giving an unfair advantage they're just leveling the playing field ما فهمتي
at the end
marka those things واحد اللي فهموا وحزبي عند دجالة ديمقراطية not everything وسمي perfect معها واحد حزبي good every issue كل ما هي نصحيح بس Somalia ده كده واحد وقبل Somalia ده يقول ما ذاني وحواي normal made كده daily struggle كده you know daily حفيز كيو أصلا يعني هذا بحن food stamps كده حكتي housing issues كده maintenance issues that you know section 8 housing that كده كويستو you know day-to-day struggles or Democratic Party أنا advocate كده daily كلهن but also Congress the White House كفورت أو advocate كده that كان سلوا عاون كده ما هذا كنا ده إنه ويليام عيرنا اسكفريستا معها that's something or I think Republicans they try to spin in it هم تقنا حزبيان مذوب حماية he tries to you know udafo poverty but not really a lot of programs but they can't come most of these programs واحد لين limits and بلايهن they have requirements or job search بلايهن requirements خفك إن لو ددارو إنه خفك واحد برتو كبحوا حالده كتيرو هتكونوا كم تجي دام جوري لكن جوري كبحان مركا that's the main or the philosophical difference لبد حزبي تذكر مركا مجوري Somalia دو علمي قاعد ديب كاملا ودريم كنا تذكر مجوري وحواي واحد فيني يعني سياسي تاجر مركز سياسي دو شو أو maybe Republican في عنه هذا وناكسن maybe ندعي يعني لحني وناكسن واي understanding مفهوم سنة deep وتاجين philosophically حزبي يعني يوصل مذوبته مركا I think more and more education also may know why I don't think Somalia the majority comes in Republican but أنا Somalia the one thing a difference between وحواي قد وحنا نجو أو يعني tight knit مركا أنا for us it's more so how Somalia أرديو generally what أردينا we don't care whether you have libertarian or green party or وحاس مركا وحاس واحد كذا شعلنا ما أسكت شعلنا أي وناك رنتي ما حمان وحين تاي مركا I try to explain to the كأني Democrats مقال هذا لكن واحد إسماعيلو ده كان يعني محا خلدنت كان ريبابليكان Somalia ده ما بقى هين ولي وإنه ما فهم سنة علما وما له هي محا كله فيه وحنقول ده وأنا فهمتين ما هيني فهمسين politically حزبي أو حتاجين حزبي عنصرية وأستقدم أساس كيس يهون من هذا كلام واحد but like أردية Somalia that overpowers all of it all
صح من قفك شوش ولا هنكر أرتو we live in a state وقفك شوش اللي
شوش ولي
إنه ماشوا
are we making an informed decision though like are we doing informed Right? That's another question that we have to think about.
That's an argument. That's an argument. Yeah.
That's for another day.
Yeah, that's for another day. For another day. And informed decision and in a way of that, choice that the person that wanted to go and experience that.
Yeah.
This conversation can go in many ways. You realize that, and I realize that.
Of course.
And I think it's better to kind of sort of sum it up in a way that, hey, you and I can agree that you and I have a difference. Mm-hmm. What was the term that? Well, how did it go? Agree you and I to disagree. Right.
Yeah,
because I can come back and spin the same way you spin on that. Hey, this other party is good as that.
They're taking us.
Exactly.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
it's a political topic.
We're not going to all agree exactly. But overall, I think, and overall, from my experience being here, Democrat has been one that has kind of sort of for the underdog for as long as I can remember.
Democrats have been generally being underdogs.
And helping the underdogs.
Helping underdogs.
Helping underdogs.
Of course. And that's a basic foundation.
And I think as a Somali we benefit a lot more than that.
Of course.
Than the other, but then there are other topics and all that
stuff.
But what I'm saying it's in a conclusion. What would you tell somebody that was contemplating whether they wanted to go in office or not?
Like run for public office?
Yeah.
I would say it's not for everyone.
Okay.
It's definitely not for everyone. I've been through a lot. It is not fun. You have to have the passion for it. You have to have a deep feeling of understanding, compassion.
Yeah.
And recognizing that it's not going to be an easy path, right? So as long as you have that within you, then you definitely that's your thing, that's your calling. Okay. You should be able to do it. But it's just not for everyone. And there's no perfect check mark or checklist that you have to go through to say, okay, this means I got to run for office then. Yeah. It's just it's a natural calling that you should get into.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. If you're out there listening to and you're interested in getting into that, so make sure that this is something that you're passionate about, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. No, we should do this more often. Thank you
so much, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.